So these are the latest RingConn rings. This is the Gen 2 over here, the Gen 2 Air in the middle, and the newly released Gen 3. So which one is right for you? Well, these are all great rings, honestly, and I found them all very comfortable, accurate, and the app I thought was great. But they do have some big differences with their features and, of course, the prices. So which one is right for you? Well, stay tuned and we'll talk about it. So the first couple of things I'm going to go over is what is the same between these things, and then I'll tell you what is different between them, especially the feature differences. But what is the same? Well, none of these have a subscription fee, which is a very big difference because that will save you a lot of money in the long run. And they all have the IP68 water resistance, which is really nice. So you don't have to worry about washing your hands or cleaning them or anything like that. So all three use the same app, and it is the RingConn app that looks like this. Let's click on it. And let me show you what it actually measures, because all three of these rings do give you a lot of information. So you get a nice display like this, and if you don't like this one, you can change it to this one. It will give you today information compared to your recent 7 days. And if the 7-day was more, then you would see a light blue sticking out there. But let's go back to this one, and you can see the different categories that it's going to measure. And I'll just scroll down here and show you. This is the vital signs. It's going to do the heart rate, the SpO₂, your HRV, your beats per minute, and your temperature, which is some nice information you get right off the bat. And if you click it right here, you get more detail. And again, this is for all the rings. You're going to get this information. And then we can scroll down here to your stress, and it will give you this information. And if you check out the full review of any of these rings, you'll see that I mentioned the app is really nice. I do like it. It gives you a lot of data, but then it also gives you some data that is actionable and you can work with, because it will show you, okay, this is our stress. You know, I'm a very tense guy, I guess. But if you scroll down here, it gives you things like this, where it'll tell you how you're doing throughout the day. And it does this with a lot of the other metrics as well. And then it will also give you how you're doing for sleep. If you had a bad night of sleep, it will say, well, this is below average. And it just gives you information and some things that you can do. And I'll show you that right here. I'm just going to jump ahead to sleep real quick. So if you click on this, it gives you the sleep score. It gives you some actionable data here. And some days this is more useful than others, but it does tell you what is improvable, you know, what the impact is, and it gives you some suggestions. Then if we scroll down here, it does give you a lot of data. It does give you a nice graph, right? And then let's get into some activities here. We're going to click on this. This does give you, obviously, some data here. It does give you your steps. It does give you your all-day calories and your activity calories. So I know a lot of people are interested in that. And your active time, standing, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that is very useful, I think. Now, if you look closely here, I mean, you have the same form factor on all of these. You have the sensors down here on the bottom and two little protrusions on each side. Now, there is a slight difference between the thickness and the weight on these, but basically it's mostly the same. So I don't think this will figure into your decision. All these rings I've worn for a long time, and they're actually very, very comfortable. I had no issues wearing them all day, all night, washing hands, doing my daily activities, all that kind of stuff. I had no problems with these rings. But if you're concerned about the weight and thickness and all that kind of stuff, and you want to compare it to other rings, I'll leave that in the description. Another thing that is now the same is that you do get activity tracking on all three of these rings. Now, you could also start an activity by just going in here in the Discover portion of the app, click on this, and you can manually start an exercise, which is not as convenient because then you got to open up your phone, open up the app. So that is not quite as nice. So it's really nice that now they all do have the auto detect on this. And I'll just show you where that is. It's in the Me portion of the app. And we're just going to go into the app settings. And we got to scroll down here. And automatic workout detection. You can see here, it's not supported on the Gen 1 if you have a RingConn Gen 1. But the Gen 2 and the Gen 2 Air do have the automatic workout detection. And same thing for the Gen 3. And then you can see here it does track walking, running, and other exercises, which I think they're adding exercises to it as time goes on. But if it recognizes that you're doing an activity because of the movement and your heart rate and all that kind of stuff, and if it does know what the activity is, it will ask you. And then you fill it in, and so this way you can keep track of your exercises over time. And of course, I never use this feature, but there is an automatic nap detection if you want that. Okay, so what is different on these? Well, the price, and that's a big factor for a lot of people. So the Gen 3 over here is $350. That is the most expensive one, and this is the newest ring. The Gen 2 over here is $300, so a little bit of a discount, and you do lose some features, and I'll go into that in just a little bit here. But the budget version of this is the Gen 2 Air, which came out in between these two rings, and it is listed as $200 in the United States. And I'll go into some of the features that you lose going with this ring. And if you don't need those features, well then it's a no-brainer. Then get the Gen 2 Air. We'll go over the differences in just a little bit here. Now, of course, all three of these do come in different colors, and that is just personal preference. I think the brushed design does cover the scratches just a little bit more, so if you are harder on the rings, you can get that. And also, just to mention, RingConn is one of the few ring companies that actually sells a little protective sleeve for these, so I'll leave a link in the description if you want to find those. Now, there is a difference with the batteries on these. So the Gen 2 is 12 days, the Gen 2 Air is the least, which is 10 days, and the Gen 3 has the most battery, which is 14 days. And I did get pretty close to that stated battery life on all of the rings. Now let's talk about some of the material differences here. Again, the build, the size, the weight, all that kind of stuff is very similar. I don't think you would really notice a difference with it. They all have the same epoxy resin inside, so I didn't have any skin irritations or anything like that. These are all very comfortable. But the Gen 2 and Gen 3 are made out of titanium, and the Gen 2 Air is made out of stainless steel. Okay, so let's get into some more of the differences here. Well, sleep apnea monitoring and detection. The Gen 2 and Gen 3 do have this. The Gen 2 Air does not have it. And the sleep apnea detection, a lot of devices have, but the sleep apnea detection and monitoring is not a common feature, so that is not available on most watches and rings. So I think RingConn does give you an extra feature with this. If you are not interested in this at all, then again, the Gen 2 Air is a great ring. And I'll get into a couple of more features that the Gen 3 gives you in just a moment. But first, let me talk about the battery chargers. Okay, so this is the Gen 2 charger, and it has a USB-C back here, and you just put the ring in, and there you go, and it charges. Now, the really nice thing about this is that this is actually a battery built in here. So you could charge the case with the USB-C, and then you could just take this case, and you could charge this without actually plugging it in, which is really nice, and you can get weeks of battery life on this. And you could also just throw this in your bag, and you could shake it around. It is not going to come out of there. It is going to keep charging. It's dead. That's why it's blinking red. But if you had this in a bag and it was bouncing around, no issues. When you take your ring out, it will be charged. Now, the Gen 2, let me skip to the Gen 3 first. So the Gen 3 has a very similar design here. I'll just pop these both open so you can see them. But the difference the Gen 3 also does have a built-in battery in here. So again, you could charge this once with the USB-C, and then you could charge the ring several times before you have to plug it in again. But you might notice that the charger here is much smaller than the Gen 2. So the Gen 2 is customized to your ring size, so you couldn't put any other ring on here. If you had a smaller ring, it just wouldn't fit. But the Gen 3, you put it on there, and I have a size 13, and it fits on there just fine. If you had a smaller ring, you can still charge it on this. Obviously, your ring size probably doesn't change all that often, but if you have other people in the house with the different size, well, you could all use the same charger, which is nice. And again, I could shake this, and that is still, the magnets are going to keep it where it is, so you can throw this in your bag with no problems. The Gen 2 Air is a different story. You get a charging puck, which is definitely smaller, so some people might like that. But here you go, you get a USB-C, and then you just put your ring on there, and it charges. This is the smaller design, like on the Gen 3, so you could charge different size rings on this charger, which is really nice. And this is kind of small and out of the way, but there is no battery charge in here. So you can take this with you traveling, obviously, but it is not as convenient, I think, as having the portable puck here with the battery built in, which is really nice. Okay, so we're back in the RingConn app because I'm going to show you what else that the Gen 3 gives you. The Gen 3 is more premium and more expensive, and it is the newest ring. And you do get upgraded sensors. You do get vibration alerts, which is really nice. You can have an alarm set on there, and you could also get an alert when your battery is dying, which is really nice. I got that the other day, and it's just really convenient if you're not paying attention. I think it said the battery would be dead in like 24 hours. So it gives you plenty of time to go ahead and find your charger. But the other nice thing is, again, the Gen 2 and the Gen 3 both do the sleep apnea monitoring and detection, but the Gen 3 gives you this thing, which is the blood pressure trends or your vascular health trends. RingConn, I don't know if it has official approval on this, so I don't know if they're not supposed to call it blood pressure, but in effect, that's what it is. It's your circulation stress or your vascular health or your blood pressure analysis, and if you click on it, it gives you some information here, but you do have to be still for it to get it. So sometimes I don't get a lot of points during the day, but you do get a fair amount of nighttime data, and you can see here, that correlates with the blood pressure, but this basically is trying to just show you your vascular health throughout the day and how you respond after exercises and with stress and things like that. So it does give you a lot of information here. You do need to set it up once initially, and then you are supposed to update it every 28 days with a manual blood pressure measurement, which is a little inconvenient, But if you don't do it every 28 days, you still get the data. It may not be as accurate. So that's just something to keep in mind. But this is a really nice feature. Again, very few watches and rings have any kind of blood pressure measurement at all. So the fact that this has this, that's great. For me, I felt like this was just a little higher than my normal blood pressure, but it was very consistent. If your physical activity and your diet and your sleep, everything like that, you're trying to see if that's improving your vascular health or not. And the RingConn will give you that information. But again, this feature is only available on the Gen 3. That's all I have. That was kind of a quick summary. So I do have more reviews on all of these rings. Check out my channel for that. I appreciate you staying to the end here. Please consider subscribing and liking. That really does help me out, so thank you so much. So leave it in the comments. Which ring are you going to buy and why? You could also leave in the comments if you have any questions about these rings, and I will do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.